It's going to be my pleasure, or it is now the time where it's my pleasure to introduce Saumil Shah, a longtime friend. I first met Saumil as an attendee at Black Hat back in 1999, giving away a little bit of our age. And then later in 2000, he presented at Black Hat on honeypots and honey nets, which is interesting because right now a little bit of the rage is deception networks and honey tokens. So sort of what's old is new again with a new twist. And it was interesting, I was asking Saumil how he got involved in that early honey nut project. And he was using his language skills. He was helping out some researchers in the United States that were tracking a hacking group called G-Force. It was attacking US government sites from Pakistan. And they were typing in Urdu. And that was close enough to your natural language skills. And so he was doing like real-time translation on the bad guys every hour. And so they're following everything they were doing, and they didn't realize it until I think things got a little too heated and the investigation got handed off to the FBI, and then who knows what happens after that. And so Saumil stayed involved in the community. He stayed involved in security and continued to be a highly contributory, exploring different avenues of security and development. But at the same time, he developed a love of photography. And it's interesting because just like Matt was talking about the journey of security, Saumil had a bit of a journey in photography, starting with landscapes. And he would send us at the Black Hat office these beautiful calendars every year with his photography, one for each month. And we'd stick it up in the office, and it was really cool. And then it's developed. Right? I was talking to Saumil, and maybe now it's more about light, contrast, geometry, maybe energy and street scenes. But through photography and file formats and imaging, he's also done interesting work combining the two. So some of you may know him for his work on Stegosploit, which was like or a polyglot and Stegosploit, an image-based exploit delivery platform system that he did in 2015, which is pretty cool. So he had a JPEG in the header had a valid DOM, valid HTML, and a valid JavaScript. And if you loaded this off a website, it would load the DOM, load the JavaScript, load the HTML, load the JavaScript. The JavaScript would then unpack itself, so the JPEG would unravel, load itself back in as a valid JPEG, decoding the pixels in Canvas that would then decode the exploit and execute the exploit. And I just brought that up to show you that your passions on the side and your technical skills can be combined, and you need to have this kind of breadth and depth and a passion for making things work in ways that are unexpected. And so I'm really looking forward to see what Saumil's lessons from the beginning of his career has been. So I'd like to introduce the real Saumil Shah.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you. Okay, mic works. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and good cyber to you. Welcome to day 2 of Black Hat Asia, Singapore. It's been a very interesting journey. First of all, I want to thank Matt for setting me up beautifully for this talk. Thank you again, Jeff. It's been an honor knowing you and the folks at Black Hat for 17 years in a row now. These are 2 of my memorabilia items, a little bubble tube from Black Hat 99 and one of these tokens that I got as a veteran trainer in 2016. So always love to carry these with me. Right, before I get into the talk, a couple of words of warning. There's definitely disruptive thoughts ahead. If you're offended, you don't have to listen to this. And second, as a second warning, there are block diagrams ahead. I'm going to try to keep these block diagrams as minimal and as non-LinkedIn-y as possible. And so with that, a quick introduction about, well, I've been introduced, so I'll just pull up an old photograph from Black Hat 2001, where everything began. And that's me, and that's the few of us at Hong Kong Peak. That's basically that was my first Black Hat in Asia. And now I'm here after 17 years doing this again. It's been a long journey. It's been a long journey in evolution. I'm going to kind of recap a little bit of the 17 years. So here we go, year 1. No, there's... but if we see the attacks have moved vastly from 2001 to 2017. Attacks have become advanced. They went from, POCs to working exploits to weaponized stuff to worms. And now we have the power of basically attacking entire nations, if not even entire planets, who knows. Targets have shifted drastically from 2001 to 2017 as well. When I first began in InfoSec, we were popping servers. We were popping Unix servers and NT servers, and it shifted to applications, desktops, browsers. The attacks then went to our pockets with our phones. And now these attacks have the capability of targeting entire populations in one go. And then what about defense? We've all talked about defense. We're all here for the love of both offense and defense. And defense has also evolved over the years. It has evolved from 2001 to 2017, where we've got several defense techniques, one different from the other, but then in the end, they all get undone. People find creative ways out, and that's what most of us here are doing. Half of the talks at Black Hat are offensive, and I broke this, I broke that, I bypassed this, I bypassed that, and that's all brilliant stuff. But attacks today, if you think of it, the next wave of attacks are way beyond what we're even exploring today. And some of the echoes have been heard in these past couple of years. And I'm not going to talk about like the new wave of attacks that's out there, but two categories that stand out distinctly in my mind is what's coming next. Attacks, subtle attacks on hardware. And a great example of that is Rowhammer, as done by my friend and his colleague. So Halvar and one of his other friends at Google, they worked on Rowhammer. Software triggering bit flips in dynamic RAM chips. And by bit flipping accurately, predicting the bit flips, you can flip page tables and then basically gain privilege access and privilege code execution. If that is not brilliantly cool, then I don't know what else is. But this is the beginning. This is the shape of things to come. And the other shape of things to come is kind of what Jeff set me up perfectly with, is Stegosploit, which is an example of an exploit delivery technique, not a real exploit, is how you can stealthily send attack code in something that is presumably innocent. Like an image, you encode all the pixels in an image, deliver the attack, deliver the decoder as a polyglot into the JPEG as well, and blow up any browser that you like. So these are two areas that the offensive side is moving to. We've talked about defending against this, and the most common question I get about Stegosploit is, so how can we patch Stegosploit? I said, wait a minute, let's rewind the tape over here and start afresh. What I want to say is there will be vulnerabilities. Bugs are going to be around. They're going to be around forever. And that's fine. If we step back, it is not because the fact that software is buggy. It is because today systems are complex, and that every complex system has something which I term as Nakatomi space. For those of you who've seen Die Hard, Bruce Willis moves through Nakatomi Tower without using any apparatus designed to traverse the tower. He does not use an elevator and does not use the stairs. Well, not in the prescribed manner, of course. He's through air ducts and pipes and everywhere else, not where you think he is going to be. There's Nakatomi space in every infrastructure, in every network, in every software, in every file format. And this is what the attackers are exploiting. They're always finding the creative ways. And if you think you're going to catch them in all these combinations and permutations, it's really time to rethink the battle. So take it from me that attacks today succeed because the defense is reactive. If we look at exploit development, this is a photograph from Black Hat 2002. I have the privilege of having old photographs because I'm an old guy now. We used to write exploits for fun and profit and mainly to get to come out to conferences and hang out. That was the real reason why we wrote them. But along with exploit development, we witnessed the evolution of an entirely new species. I wish Halvar was here because this is his concept. A new creature was born, which is best described as the mitigator. And the mitigator is a well-intentioned but short-sighted and not terribly effective alligator, always working to make exploitation harder. This is a sketch that Halvar did and I colored it, and then Halvar basically described the core essence of what exploit mitigation technology is all about. We've heard about exploit mitigation stuff, heard about DEP and ROP and control flow integrity and everything else. So what basically the mitigator raises the bar until it sees no more exploits. And this is how we've been investing into it. The technology is pretty cool. I mean, hardware-enforced data execution prevention was brilliant, except that now everybody is doing ROP chains. So, okay, what's that going to do now? I'm not saying it is useless, but I'm saying that raising the bar doesn't mean that there's no more exploits to be seen. But what raising the bar has done effectively is it has turned the cost and investment into exploit development way high. So now these are again figures pulled from air. I have no scientific way of backing them up. But basically your exploit development takes at least 2 to 12 person months. Your shelf life is gone. No public domain exploits, like nothing like packet storm or anything cool that we used to hoover all the time. And the exploits have now become commercialized, weaponized, and politicized. What this has done is created a vast market for purchasing exploits, for purchasing bugs. There's a huge economy out there. So what does the reactive way of thinking do over here? One of the offshoots from this was that the defenders tried to buy back their own bugs. The concept was great. Let us reward researchers for the work they did and kind of appreciate them. But then when bug bounties became a high-stakes game, you start escalating the costs. There is no end to the story. I see bug bounties as something that has tried to fill a reactive need. The true spirit has somehow lost its way. And now we've got to ask ourselves the questions that, are bug bounties really helping or are they backfiring? Because now today what you see as some prices being quoted, it's not Apple that's paying $1 million for an iOS 9 jailbreak. It is Zerodium. You cannot call that as bug bounty. It is just called bug purchase. We're going to buy the bug from you for $1 million, and we're going to do whatever we like with it. It's not going to go back to the vendor. And then again, there's a huge divide. There's like a huge spectrum between the bug bounty outputs. You get like 1,000,001 cross-site scripting. Half of them are self-cross-site scripting bugs, with alert ones being popped up. Yesterday, I got a note that, your netsquare.com site has a vulnerability. And what I looked in is just a 404 page. It's a broken link. That's not a vulnerability. But then again, on the other hand, you have like all the high-end stuff. And the truth is, the underground market always pays more. And my premise, my whole take on bug bounties is the fact that it is not about the fact that you want to offer more money to buy the bug from a person and prevent them from doing a bad thing. There's two types of individuals, basically. Individuals who want to do the right thing and individuals who never want to do the right thing. It's not about the money. It's about what their intent is. So for a guy like me, it's not about the fact that, okay, if somebody pays me $1,000 versus $1 million, I'm going to go and sell out to the higher bidder. No, I'm definitely going to do the right thing here and not sell out. And those that want the money will never do the right thing. So forget fighting this. Appreciate it, but do not see bug bounties as something that's going to solve the whole equation. Back to some more examples on reactive security. We've dealt with reactive security for over a decade and a half now. So much so that it's kind of become ingrained nature the two words are no longer distinct in our minds. Whenever we think of security, we instinctively think of reacting towards it, mitigating it, diluting it, patching it, fixing it, and then moving on. We wait for things to happen and then we react. And essentially the industry of defense, I'm not using the word defense over here, I'm using the word security specifically, because defense is something different. The industry of defending has now become largely compliance driven. Now here's an example. This is a picture from my hometown, where the law says that the rider of a two-wheeler has to have a helmet on their heads. The law says nothing about the pillion rider, the person sitting at the back. So what if they spill and this lady has to be scraped off the road with a spatula? That's not going to be cool, but these guys are compliant. The cops can't catch them. So they're obeying the law, but are they secure? Well, this is how we roll in Ahmedabad anyway, so we get by. But these companies are also compliant. They also got the nice big stamp on it, and yet they got owned. So where's the whole security angle fitting in? I don't want to be rude to the folks across in the business hall, but if you go and take a look at a business hall, today you see security being sold as something that reduces risk. It's all about risk reduction. It's all about great marketing and stuff. If you peel down all the marketing facades, which by the way, marketing can be very, very misleading. If you peel down the facade, you will realize that these risk reduction products work on three principles: rules, signatures, and updates. They can only probably catch what they've seen. And then you kind of course, have to push the new hybrid angle. Everything has to have machine learning in it. So yeah, you have rules, signatures, updates, and machine learning. But this is still reactive security. And then there is marketing, which has kind of echoed over the years. Remember Oracle's famous statement, we are going to make the unhackable database. And how many holes did David Litchfield blow? Hundreds. Like every week he came up with a new bug. So marketing can sometimes fall flat in your face. And yet we have marketing happening over here. We'll stop 99% of the bugs. No diss on the, don't take the brand, I was just taking a photograph over here. But the truth is, we got to say something like this, right? Because after all, we're hackers and we're jerks. The truth is, it's the other 1% that really matters. The 99% don't really matter. It's the 1% of undetected malware that gets through that completely owns everything. And it's been happening all the time. So to kind of sum up everything in a couple of statements, we have the fact that existing defense measures do not match attacker tactics anymore. It's fighting two vastly different paths. And this stems from the fact that attackers don't have to follow standards and certifications. They do whatever they please. We do have to follow standards and certifications. That's kind of being very shackling experience. And speaking about being shackled, who feels worse than the CISO themselves? So if we think about what's happened to the Chief Information Security Officer, I mean, this is not far from the truth that they're basically used to pin the blame onto them. And if you trace back the origins of where did the CISO thing come about? When I started with Black Hat, there was a loose notion of a CISO. There used to be the Chief Information Officer, and that used to be in charge of all the new technology that's going to enable the business. But very quickly, this forked off into two directions. The CIO continued being viewed as the owner of IT, and Infotech became the business enabler. Infosec became the risk reducer component. And essentially, the CISO got a shitty job. The budgets went to IT, and what went to the CISO is called CYA. Cover your ass. And then CIA, if it all goes south. every CISO I meet today, the first thing before we begin engagement, and that's why we are still a very small company with not a lot of revenue, it's because of this one question that I ask. Who do you think is scarier? Attackers or auditors? Who do you fear most? And that's why we don't get too much business. Thank you. So, well, it's time we made security great again. Not by building firewalls, not by making the attackers pay for the firewalls either, but we got to turn this whole game from reactive to proactive. So with this, let me introduce these 7 axioms of security. These are basically, I call them axioms because I want them to be remembered. They're not laws or postulates or anything of the sort, but it just looks cool. And I like the number 7. It's a prime number. The whole goal of these 7 axioms is basically intelligence-driven defense. And now I want to use the word defense, which is a completely separate function than reactive security. Whatever it takes to defend your organization, that's what we're going to explore over here. So first of all, the first and foremost axiom is defense doesn't mean risk reduction. Defense is not about reducing risk. Defense is about getting the job done and keeping your systems clean. And this brings us to a rewriting of the same axiom. If you want to read it in a different way, read it that the CISO's job is defense. CISO's job is not risk reduction. And I found an infographic. Somebody had taken great pains. It's a guy named Rafiq Rahman on his blog, taken great pains to prepare this gigantic infographic. Like anybody who wants to take up a CISO job, basically look at this and just say, nah, no, not me. Right? But it's a massive functionality. If you analyze all these sectors of this job functionality, you quickly realize that 90% of your time is sucked up by this one red rectangle at the bottom which says compliance and audits. It is time we say this is not the CISO's job. Compliance has to be moved away from the Chief Information Security Officer. You free up this 90% time suck, the CISO is going to be left with a lot of time and energy and talent to properly defend the network. So in 2007, we at the board level need to really make an organizational change. Yes, compliance remains. We're not going to get rid of it as much as I would love to. But the CISO has to now fork. Process forks. CISO takes the role of defending. So InfoSec becomes defense. And now you have another position created called the Chief Compliance Officer, which is basically the person in charge of handling compliance. Compliance is a cost of doing business. So that's the new scapegoat. Put compliance away, let it get done, let it not interfere with the process of defense. Because really what? Compliance never solved any defense problem, neither in the financial industry. Folks here in Singapore familiar with a gentleman named Nick Leeson, Barings Bank, Bernie Madoff. In fact, 4 individuals in this planet have stolen more money than any hacker put together in 2 decades. Bernie Madoff and Nick Leeson being 2 of them. Anyways, I digress. The second thing. So now what do we do about intelligence-driven defense? So first, intelligence begins by collecting everything. The 5 I's have taught us that. And they continue doing this all the time. So in your organization, the most important entity that you need to set up is what I call as a security data warehouse. Everything goes in there. Everything that can be correlated, classified, analyzed, and predicted upon. Run tight intelligence in your entire organization because fundamentally, there is no price that you can put on historical data. With every month, the importance of historical data increases exponentially with time. Jeff was telling me that 90% of the data on the internet is added in the past 11 months. I don't know if the statistic still holds true or is now getting added in a shorter time. But data accumulates at a staggering rate, and historical data is going to be worth its weight in gold. Fortunately, the cost of data storage is not high. In fact, it's kind of decreasing, so we can afford to aggregate all this. Where do you get this data from? There's several solutions which kind of sell you threat intelligence. There's maps that go pew, 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 pew. That's not where you get threat intelligence. You have to look within to get your threat intelligence. You have to look inside your own organization and basically observe it and build up the intelligence yourself. So I call this process as get creative, get organic. Here's an example from Facebook. Facebook has released something called OS Query. Think of it like jQuery for operating systems. No, it is complete crap. OS Query is open source. You can install it, runs on pretty much every endpoint, and grabs every important piece of analysis in a nice SQL-like database that you can query at will. And by organic security, I mean it is time that organizations who have the muscle must grow their own security in-house to suit the needs of the organization. No one product is going to fit the bill. And there's several good open source projects out there. All you need to do is attract a team of bright individuals such as yourself and get this thing going. And this kind of leads you to a chicken and an egg situation. Like, how do you attract big talent? That's what I've been hearing. Like, how do you guys hire? Well, you hire talent by doing cool things. How do you do cool things? By hiring cool people. So you have to set the agenda. Basically, don't get quagmired by compliance, and then the cool people will join your organization, and then turn them loose to do these cool things, and they will perform better than your wildest expectations. Just enable them to do that. That's how you run it. The third axiom is basically something I reflected upon Halvar's statement yesterday, that it is impossible to figure out if a device is secure or has been compromised at any given point of time. So I kind of want to flip this around and call this the phenomenon of the Schrodinger's hack. You take a computer, you load it with software, connect it on the internet, and don't look at it. Packets start flowing. You don't know if the cat is dead or the cat is alive. In fact, the cat exists in both the dead and the alive state at the same time. Your computer is secure and hacked at the same time. It is only when you choose to test it will you really realize what's going on. So this axiom can be reread as test realistically. And we've all done testing. I come from a pen testing background, so I have 1 minute of rant. Just 1 minute. But whenever we've done pen tests, we've kind of lost the reality angle of pen tests. I have this concept that makers make and breakers break. Let them both do a good job of both things. There's people who want to observe. They literally have a foregone conclusion that I want to find my system secure. So how do you test so that your system always comes out to be secure? First, you wait for a production build, saying, oh, a new build is coming, so don't test now. Great. Don't test on production, only on UAT. Brilliant. Perform non-intrusive testing. Yeah, basically let me massage you without touching you. XYZ, they're all out of scope. Great, I can't touch this, I can't touch that, I can't touch that. Then what can I do? And then test during off-peak hours only. Yeah. Might as well want to wait for Saturn to align and then do the test, and that will give you even better, more secure results. So this is not how you test realistically. Anyway, you get the point. There's concepts of red teams, blue teams. They're already well established. Basically, let them do their job. This brings me to the fourth axiom, something that struck a chord when I attended a keynote delivered by Marcus Raynham. And Raynham's keynote was all about metrics. The statement is, if you can't measure it, you can't use it. Raynham made a very good point of security metrics Like, why do you need metrics? Basically, metrics will show what's happening. It's basically either to show that you're succeeding or to show that you're failing. There's always a question of budgets. Metrics will enable budgets or arguments or trolling, whatever you want to look at it. And Raynham went on to describe that whatever process you can find in your organization that is measurable, measure it, uptick it, downtick it, and see which direction it's going, and keep an eye on it, and then keep on measuring realistically. Don't skew the measurements, don't bias it, because eventually in InfoSec, because it's coming from a reactive side, it's always about what Raynham calls as a battle of two narratives. People can always lie against you and say that this is complete hogwash. It's only your metrics is going to make it work. Basically, metrics are what's going to enable your innovative ideas to take root. Without metrics, you're going to get shot down. Coming to the fifth concept, and this is a concept that has kind of been ignored for a very, very long time. And all of us InfoSec researchers are kind of guilty, myself inclusive. We basically look down upon users all the time, right? It's the user's fault. Like, users suck, users do this, users do that. The truth is, we've been treating users in the same manner for 2 decades. And reality is, for users, one size fits none. We've been having the same security measure applied to every type of user across the organization, only because we focus upon the most pathetic of all users. Basically, the most pathetic of all users, we're going to pick dancing pigs over security all the time. That's Schneier's code. And the truth is, yes, they do that. If you enable a user with excessive technology, they will tweet photos of their own debit cards because they don't know what to do better. Right? Now, these are hopeless users. But this doesn't mean that these are every user is hopeless. Right? And the Grug made a very important point, and the Grug's statement was that it's surprising how good phishing technique is with APT attacks. And SP made a better point that user hardening efforts have barely made any progress compared to software hardening over the last years. It's really time that we rethink user hardening, not from a one-size-fits-all perspective. And this is an area which requires a lot of thinking and a lot of investments. But fortunately, I have a few large customers, and we did a few quick metrics to plot what I call as the InfoSec maturity curve of every user. So if you look at the x-axis, this indicates the more mature users, and the y-axis is the frequency of how many users are at various levels of maturity. You'll see a skewed bell curve like this. And then we start drawing lines, like, who are these groups? Who are these people? Let's call them hopeless, uninformed, proactive, and rock stars. These are your 4 groups. And here's what you need to do with each group. The hopeless are always going to be an enigma. Leave them alone. They're their own worst enemies. Let them suffer and burn. Don't care. It's fine. It's 2017. We can do this. Right? The rock stars are brilliant. They're doing a better job than you even expected. Leave them alone and don't bother them. Don't make them change their passwords 12 times a year. Don't screw with password complexity for them. They're doing a better job than you thought of. Learn from them rather than screwing around with them. What you really want to think of are your proactive users who are the next set of rock stars coming up. But your target group, your main focus group of all your user hardening efforts has to be the uninformed users. Now, uninformed users are those that don't know better, but if they're properly guided, they're willing to improve their usage habits. So effectively, in an entire organization, you only need to focus on these 1/4 users and shift them to be more proactive. Your curve will swing. And that's it. Then you can cut off the hopeless and burn them. That's okay. And then what you have is an organization with empowered users with way better security hygiene. This is a community. your organization, your users together improving InfoSec. And that's a situation which cannot be beat easily. The sixth axiom is basically to elaborate on what Matt also said, and I stated as the best defense is a creative defense. What it also means that the best defense is an unexpected defense. And we're seeing creative techniques. We're seeing techniques where products, thoughts, ideas are coming up. Let's booby trap our networks. Let's put canaries in them. Let's put honey tokens in them. Let's put honey pots in them. Some are doing it right, some are not doing it right, but the idea is there, and that's a good thing. Let it take root. Let us proactively catch the people and let them trip up. Because if I am an attacker, I know all the defenses that are out there in the business hall. But I do not know of a defense that you've cooked up in your own organization. That is something unexpected, and I'm going to trip up. That's where you want me to trip up. And that's what deception technology, honey token technology, canaries, write your own scripts, have backdoored accounts that should never have a login. Have credit cards which are only issued to yourself and you don't want to see it ever being used in your bank. Program that 16-digit number into every regular expression that you can with the thing that this regex should never fire. If it does, then something is horribly wrong, and trace back everything, you'll find out a completely new pattern, a completely new process of attack, and probably a completely new entity that is attacking you. And that's where you do your threat hunting. And that's how you apply it intelligently. So, with this, the last axiom is basically we have to work to make defense visible. We have to work to make defense count. If you don't see it, doesn't exist. Pix or it didn't happen, right? How do you make it count? How do you follow Raynham's metrics? How do you make everything proactive and accountable? Well, here's some thoughts. I thought of what you can measure. First and foremost, measure that user maturity curve. Keep tracking it week after week and see it that it shifts. If not, you're doing something wrong. Make it shift. Reduce your blue team's response time. You should get faster and faster and smarter at finding the attacks. Empower them with toys and tools and whatever they want. Buy them 3D printers, laser guns, drones, anything that keeps them happy and gets them to detect threats. The third thing is, when you're talking about defense, it's all about demonstrating how much money you've saved. Because in the end, InfoSec still is a cost center and it still eats into budget. And the board is not really willing to spend the budgets. You've got to make it happen. If you can demonstrate money savings through defense, that's money earned. And that enables you to control the narrative and ask for more budgets and enable doing cool things. What you want to demonstrate is a consistent reduction in frauds, in errors, in attempts all across the board. Then you really want to produce great creative defense tools, like what Facebook, Google, and several other organizations are doing. This will enable you to have smarter talent in InfoSec. And now what I mean in InfoSec is not in compliance. Compliance can take all of that and do what they need to do. And once you figure out that you've got it all going, every week you must take what I call as the CISO's fitness test. Test your strength every week and score yourself on this scale. How high of a target are you able to hit week after week? You'll begin with level 0 like Kung Fu Panda, always. But then we want to go all the way up to 11. And essentially, if you can track attackers in real time, detect and uncover their threats, and then defend yourself and get rid of it, that's where you start winning. So, at the end of the day, when you've got this organization running, it's time to ask the question, is your InfoSec team doing something creative every day? Ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of my talk. I thank you for your time and attention. Couple of notes. Like Jeff said, there's a lock note at 4:15 today where I'll be on stage again with Jeff and Christian and Thomas, and we'll have some discussions. For now, I'm quite done. How are we doing on time? I can take some questions. Oh, great. Let's have at it. Fire away. Any questions?
Hi, thank you very much for that very insightful speech.
Pleasure, thank you.
You mentioned about making creative defense as an unexpected defense.
That's right.
And then you went on to say make defense visible.
That's correct.
These are kind of...
Okay, let me elaborate on what I said. It is, so I made two statements. I said that creative defense is an unexpected defense, where you don't know what's coming. When I make the statement of making defense visible, I'm not saying that you have to tell the world what you're doing. You don't go advertising saying, hey, I have these backdoored credit cards and backdoored accounts. That's kind of silly. What I'm saying is make the process of defense visible. Make the activity of defense visible not to the world, but those who give you money. That is your board. Whenever you're doing a review, today I've asked several board members this question: how do you rate your CISO? So basically, they say that, the CISO's job is to pass compliance tests and basically make sure we're not getting breached. What happens if they're breached? New CISO. So this is not a very visible thing because the board doesn't really see the process of defense. You've got to make the process of defense visible up to the board members. That's what I meant by the visibility in defense. You're welcome. Any other questions? Anyone? I would say I'd buy you a beer, but beers are ridiculously expensive in Singapore. And it's also Tiger, which I don't like, sorry. No more? All right. Yes, we have one question. Who is it? Have at it.
Yeah. In the beginning of your speech, you talk about the CIO jobs got separated between CIO and CISO.
That's right.
And then you say CISO jobs should be separated to CISO and CCO.
Correct.
But then your CCO at the end will just get all the money again, and your CISO have none. So
that's a very good point. That's a very good point. No, the reality. So the statement is the CIO end up keeping the money and the CISO as a scapegoat. Now, the CISO, when you start doing defense, you start making it visible, you get the budgets for defense. Compliance will end up becoming a fixed cost thing, just like legal. It's the cost of doing business. Get the audit done, get the clean sheet, move on. It's, brutal words, but that's the truth. That's what compliance wants. So, it's not that the CCO is going to start getting all the budgets. Yes, their budgets will increase. But if you make a case for proactive defense as the CISO, your budgets will be far enabled by two factors. Because you're doing cool things and you're making it visible. And second is because you're doing creative homegrown things. And homegrown things require very little budget. So you can do a lot more with every dollar you're given than just buying boxes with blinking lights and pew-pew maps. Have at it. Mike, please. One more. We'll just give you a mic.
You said that companies should start making their own security in some way.
Right.
But I've seen homemade security, and that's not always the best idea. That can be really bad.
Oh, I agree. The idea is that the question is, I did preach about homegrown security, and just like everything else that's homegrown, you can be a good cook, you can be a shitty cook. And there's no limits to the power of human intelligence or unintelligence to enable you to come up with great things or atrocious things. So yes, it has to be taken in that spirit, is if you can manage to do it well, if you do have good cooks, please use them. If not, get good cooks. But homegrown and customized cooking is the best, and homegrown and customized security, in my opinion, is what's going to fit your bill best with the least amount of money spent. Yes.
What are your thoughts on systems engineering approaches to security?
Thoughts on systems engineering approaches to security. In one word, brilliant. In another word, let me come back to you with that at 4:15. Because honestly, I have not thought about it too much. Okay. But yeah, sure. If it works, great. Yes, one more.
So, question for you. The CISO, when you said, basically once you get attacked, you get fired. What's the best way for us to kind of inform the board or management what the CISO is actually doing, educate them on these actions? Because like you said, until you're hacked, you don't know how successful you are. It's hard to gauge.
Yeah, so what you really need to do is, again, get all your metrics, get all the indicators week after week, month after month, quarter after quarter, and literally translate reduction in fraud to amount of dollars saved. Reduction of threat attempts, identification, demonstrate response times. Like, okay, we had a threat, we caught it in a week. Now we have a threat, we can catch it in 48 hours. A great example of, I've made a statement that bug bounties are kind of iffy, but there's one person who did it right with bug bounties, and that was Chris Evans. At that time, he was the product leader of Google Chrome. What he did with, he and his entire organization did with bug bounties was take it and commit to patching it and turning it around before pwn-to-own ends. So you literally went from a patch cycle of a few days to a patch cycle of 24 hours in rolling it out. That is demonstration. That is when you start making things visible, and that gets really appreciated. So that's what you want to demonstrate.
So what about SMEs? There's a lot of talk about innovation nowadays and giving a lot of emerging businesses and young people coming into the business.
Right.
How do you deal with the language? Because a lot of language used by CISOs and CCOs are quite technical or quite business oriented on a high level.
Right.
How do you approach SMEs and transfer the same information? Because they don't necessarily have the capabilities to do homegrown security techniques.
Right. And that is a valid thing. There's actually two areas of the whole spectrum that this talk has kind of left out. The SMEs and the hyper-gigantic corporations. This talk doesn't apply to the Googles, and it doesn't apply to the NetSquares. I'm at the SME level. In fact, I'm the S of the SMEs, 40 people company. So we cannot have our own homegrown security, but we definitely have our own homegrown process. And for us, even our needs for demonstrating InfoSec are very low. Our defense target is also very low. We have a smaller perimeter, a smaller asset inventory to defend. And we're basically, the mantra for SMEs is vigilance. You can put vigilance into your processes. Even simple like ARP monitoring or stuff like that works great.
You described Nakatomi space as near infinite, but you also said the cost of an exploit is going up. Doesn't that suggest that we're making Nakatomi space harder to get into, that we're actually winning a little bit?
Yes, we're winning a little bit, for sure. The mitigator always raises the bar. It is getting harder and harder to traverse. But the fact remains that your infrastructure is changing shape very rapidly. Today, like I teach an ARM attack class. My statement is there's an Intel on every desktop, but there's an ARM in every pocket. The attacks have now moved to mobile. They've moved to the mobile platform, IoT. What these additions will do to your Nakatomi space, we have no idea. I mean, today, if you look at HTTP, it has become the datagram of the application layer. And if you look at message queues, they've become the TCP of the application layer. And a whole new infrastructure, an application messaging infrastructure is built upon it. It's kind of gone meta, one level up. So your organization's perimeter itself is changing. What that does to Nakatomi space, I have no idea. But I do know that you can do directory traversals on dishwashers now. In Soviet Russia, dishwashers wash you. Okay. Last question. Yes.
Thank you for the speech. What do you think about red teaming as a creative, proactive tool against blue team?
Once again, what do I think about
red teaming?
Red teaming.
Yeah, what do you think about as a creative, proactive tool?
So, I mean, I am a firm believer in realistic testing. The question is, what do I think about red teaming? I like the idea. I like the idea of red teams. I like the idea of blue teams. Like I said, makers make and breakers break, and defenders defend. Let all three independently do their job as realistically without being encumbered as far as possible. So give yourself a reality check, red team it all the way, don't exclude stuff from scope. Open that Schrodinger's hack box and see if your system's really hacked or secure, realistically. All right, well, that's a wrap. Thank you again for your time, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the break, enjoy the rest of the conference, and see you later.